Chapter 1. People make mistakes. Most of the time, James thinks you should forgive them. If they're sorry. If they mean it. He himself has made some questionable decisions in his life. Some missteps. Everyone is just trying their best. People make mistakes. But they also make choices. It's important to him, that difference. He does his best not to confuse the two. The night that Sirius shows up on James's doorstep, he's barely able to stand. He has his wand, that's all. He's not even wearing shoes. Didn't have time, he tells James, words slightly slurred. Sirius smiles when he says it, but the expression doesn't reach his eyes, cracking in the corners of his mouth. Before that night, James had never fully understood what it meant to want someone dead, but he could have killed them, all of them, anyone who had ever touched Sirius. Bit predictable, aren't they? He finds himself saying, as he slips a gentle arm around his friend and starts leading him inside. What, shoes, you mean? Well, yeah. Everyone wears them, don't they? Where's the fucking spontaneity? I look down and know exactly what I'm gonna get. Shoes. Exactly. Sirius's smile is a bit more genuine this time, though James can feel him trembling under his hands. Fucking fascists. Sirius mutters just as James's mother comes down the stairs, wand lit, feet slippered. James, what? Oh. She stops there, halfway down the steps, and for a moment something painful flickers on her face, but then it's gone. Sirius, love, it's good to see you. James, the den, please. James nods, slowly walking himself and Sirius towards the sofa. Sirius's breath is labored, and every once in a while James feels him suppress a wince. Sorry about just turning up, he says, his voice strained as James lowers him onto the sofa. Don't be daft. He sits beside him, hand still on his arm, unwilling to let him go. You're always welcome, you know that. Miss Potter comes into the room behind them, a cup of hot tea floating beside her. She levitates it gently onto the coffee table. Milk, 4 sugars, she says, making Sirius grin. You remembered. Hard to forget a bloody toothache in a mug. That earns James a pointed stare from his mother, but Sirius only laughs, head resting on the back of the sofa like he hasn't got the energy to hold it up. What can I say? I like 'em sweet? He winks at James, who grins in return. Sirius would flirt with a lamppost if he was bored enough. Or scared. Sirius wraps charm around himself like armor. Euphemia kneels in front of him, her hand reaching out to gently cup his cheek. Sirius is pale. Even in the dark, James can see that. Can see the circles under his eyes and the blooming purple bruise on the side of his jaw. If her frown is anything to go by, James would guess his mother sees it too. I'm going to cast a diagnostic spell, love, she says softly, thumb grazing his cheek. Is that all right? There's a pause, a slight tightening in the corners of Sirius's eyes. Never one to relish letting people in. Eventually, he nods. Euphemia takes a deep breath before pulling her hand away and beginning to cast silently. James can feel her magic, warm and sweet, like cinnamon. Sirius's eyes flutter closed, arm going stiff under James's hand, so he gives it a squeeze. I'm here, he hopes it says. I'm here, I'm here. After a few seconds, Sirius squeezes back. Euphemia's wand drops into her lap, but she waits for Sirius's eyes to open before she speaks, teeth nervously biting into her lower lip. I'm just going to mend your ribs and ankle, okay? There shouldn't be any lingering soreness, but if there is, you let me know. What? James's stomach clenches. The rage, when it comes, is waved so high he can't see over the top of it. He drowns in it. Your ribs. They broke your fucking ribs. James, his mother chastises. But he can't. It's too much. It's too fucking much. If it makes you feel better, I don't think they're actually broken. Sirius shifts his position and barely holds back a groan. More like slightly cracked. Isn't that right, Effie? He offers her a smile and she huffs out a breath in return. I'm going to need you to hold still, is all she says. He nods again. This time, when the spells are cast, Sirius control slips. Small grunts of pain forcing themselves out of his mouth as his bones knit themselves back together. James wants to scream. There we go, his mother says softly, pushing the fringe back off of Sirius's forehead. All done now. Sirius nods, eyes closed again as he slowly sinks down onto the sofa. James moves so he can stretch out his legs. Sorry. Bit tired. Thanks, though. Thought I was gonna have to go to Mungo's. Worried they would come get me. Even in the dark, James can see his mother holding back tears. No, she says weakly. No one's going to get you, Sirius. Is all he replies, already half asleep. The two Potters stand frozen for a moment, silent in their darkened home, brimming with feelings that ache. James, will you... He cuts her off with a nod, going quickly to the cupboard in the hallway and getting the spare blankets and pillows. Go to sleep, Mum, he says softly as he comes back into the room. I'll stay with him. He drapes the blankets over Sirius's body, gently slipping a pillow under his head. You sure? She asks. James turns back to her, offering what he hopes is a reassuring smile. Yeah, of course. It's not as though he's going to be able to sleep now, anyway, and there's no way in hell he's letting Sirius out of his sight. She nods, eyes still on Sirius, even as she pulls James close and kisses the top of his head. Hey, Mum. He catches her before she leaves the room, still whispering. Thanks, he says, lamely, causing his mother's brows to draw together. Thank you for... He doesn't know how to put it into words, how to say how grateful he is for his parents, for loving Sirius, for seeing how desperately he needs them to, deserves for them to. James gestures vaguely at the sleeping boy on the sofa. Just thanks. I love you, she says after a brief pause, voice thin and far too sad for James's liking. Love you too. And then, almost in the same breath, I'm not going to let him go back there. Because it needs to be said. Because he should have said it ages ago. She nods slowly. I know. But he shakes his head. No, I mean, not just right now. Not just this summer. I'm never letting him go back there. To them. Yes. A sad sort of smile finds its way into the corner of her mouth. I know. And then her expression shifts, as though suddenly remembering something. Regulus. The name comes out as a breath. James blinks, thrown by the sudden change in subject. What about him? He doesn't mean it to sound as cold as it does. His mother runs a hand over her face, looking tired. We can't leave him there. I'll talk to Albus, see if I can... No, Mum. James glances quickly down at Sirius to make sure he's still asleep. Regulus isn't like Sirius. I don't know. He's one of them. He's a child, James. Pfft. He knocks her words aside. Not hardly. We're practically the same age. She smiles a bit at that. Yes, exactly. James scowls. He doesn't want to leave, he presses on. He likes it there, likes all the pure-blood garbage. I'm not having him in my house, not having him around Sirius. She arches her brow. Oh, it's your house, is it? James's cheeks flush, but he doesn't back down, arm crossing over his chest as he holds her gaze. I'm not having him near Sirius, he repeats. A few moments of tense silence pass before Euphema rolls her eyes, letting out a long-suffering sigh. I'm writing Albus in the morning. Mum, her hand snaps up to stop him, a clear warning sign. Miss Potter is not a woman you want to cross, and James's protest is effectively shoved back down his throat. I won't leave a child in that household, James, not if I can help it, so I don't really care what you think of him. Am I clear? Grudgingly, James nods his head. Excellent. Good night, then. He doesn't reply, sulkily sliding down onto the floor, pressing his back into the sofa. People make mistakes. But this, his friend showing up broken and shivering in the middle of the night, this is not a mistake. As far as James is concerned, the Blacks have made a choice, Regulus included, and it is unforgivable. It's brilliant, having Sirius stay all summer. Not worrying about running out of time, not seeing that look in his eyes as the days count down. Sure, there are still moments when he drifts to places that James can't quite get to, but on the whole, it's better. He speaks about what happened in bits and pieces, like he can't handle it all at once, first to James's mum and dad, and then, when they come, to Professor Dumbledore and Alistair Moody. They told me to take the mark, Sirius explains, always in that same dead voice. Just once more, they keep saying, just a few more details. I told them to fuck off. You can imagine how well that went over. James never pushes Sirius for more. He watches the adults around them take from Sirius without even realizing it, even his mum and dad, so focused on the bigger picture, the politics, the war. They never noticed how their questions strip him bare, how little is holding Sirius together, probably because how he snarks his way through it, throwing out one-liners like it's his own personal one-man show. It's only James who notices how his hands shake, or the muffliato charm he throws over his bedroom at night. But mostly, the summer is good. Bright and warm. They play Quidditch nearly every day, twirling around one another in the yard, diving for snitches that aren't there just to see if the other will follow, tugging on broom ends and knocking bludgers about. Dumbledore comes and goes, and there's no more talk of Regulus. At least not that James hears. He's glad. That's the last thing Sirius needs. You will try to behave, won't you? Euphema asks as they face her on platform 9 3/4, the train thrumming behind them. Try? Sirius says lightly, grinning as Miss Potter places a kiss on the top of his head. Certainly we can try. Love a good try, I do, James agrees as he receives his own kiss. His mother rolls her eyes, elbowing her husband as he attempts to choke back a laugh. I pity Minerva. Fleamont manages to wheeze. James scrunches his nose. If anything, you should pity me in the amount of homework that woman gives out, his mother says pointedly. Yes, Jamie, that was terribly rude. Everyone knows she goes by a feline. Serious! James chortles. Cat on her bad days. Kitty on her very bad days. Sirius! Oh, what's that? I think we better go. Don't want to miss the train. Sirius tugs on James, who's bent over in a fit of laughter. I mean it, you two, Euphemia calls after them, not sounding nearly as cross as she probably means to. Behave, and be careful. James waves to his mother before being dragged onto the train by Sirius, both of them still half in hysterics. Kitty, James is still muttering to himself as they push along the train in search of the others. It doesn't take them long to find them. It never does. Even without the map, James has always felt there was an almost electric pull between the four of them. Sometimes he swears he can feel them tugging at him, like strings wrapped around his ribs. He could find them anywhere. Hello, boys. Sirius grins as he throws open the compartment door with a bang, nearly causing Remus to fall off his seat. You can never just walk into a room, can you? He grumbles, righting himself. Always gotta announce yourself like the bloody queen. Ah, but Mooney, Sirius drops into the seat next to him, invading his personal space. I am the queen. James watches Remus struggle to keep a straight face. Are you now? Sirius nods gravely. I can tell you don't believe me, but answer me this. Have you ever seen us both in the same place at the same time? That's enough to have James giggling again, Peter snorting so hard he nearly chokes. You're a menace, you know that? Remus shoots at Sirius before returning to his book, unable to keep the fondness out of his voice. It's all for you, my love. James thinks, for a moment, that he sees a blush blooming across Remus's cheeks. But there isn't much time to ponder the reason why before the carriage door is being thrown open again. Bloody genetics, Remus mutters under his breath, the four of them staring up at the new arrival. Regulus Black stops dead in his tracks, seemingly just as surprised to see them as they are to see him. Sorry, he says, eyes meeting Sirius's, and then instantly going blank, like a wall has come down. Thought it was empty. Couldn't you hear us? Peter asks, sounding genuinely curious. No. His eyes are still on Sirius, and it's making James's skin itch. They look similar, same dark curls and gray eyes. Sirius is taller, broader across the chest and shoulders, a beater build. Regulus is, well, there's no other word for it, pretty. He looks like one of the cherubs in a Renaissance painting, just with more scowling. Can we help you with something? James hears himself say before deciding to speak. Regulus starts like he'd forgotten the rest of them were there, blinking a few times before dropping Sirius's gaze. No, he says again, his favorite word apparently. Brilliant, James says, clapping his hands together. Guess you'll be off then, won't you? He doesn't move, just keeps standing there, a weird tension on his face, jaw clenching and unclenching. The awkward silence stretches on infinitely too long, as far as James is concerned. Eventually, Regulus pulls his eyes up again, looking determinedly at his brother. You all right? Sirius goes stiff. Even from the other side of the compartment, James can see it, the flexing in his arms, the rising of his shoulders. When he's around his family, James hardly recognizes him. All the light that pours out of Sirius on a nearly constant basis seems to dry right up. They're a bunch of bloody dementors, the Blacks are. All right, Peter asks confused, eyes darting back and forth between the two brothers. Why wouldn't he be all right? No one answers him. Remus, who must be nearly as confused, has closed the book in his lap, eyes brimming with concern as he watches Sirius like there's no one else in the room. Yeah, Sirius says finally. Sure, Reg, I'm fine. James can feel it again, the rage that welled inside of him the night Sirius showed up, broken and bloody and hurting. You done now? He snaps, when Regulus continues to just stand there. This is none of your business. Regulus snaps back, and oh boy, that about does it. James can practically feel the magic buzzing under his skin as his hands curl into fists. The hell it isn't. You think you can waltz in here like everything's fine? Like you lot didn't beat the shit out of him? What? Peter squawks, but James is barely paying attention, his eyes burning holes into Regulus, who gives it right back to him. You don't know anything. I know enough. I never touched him. But you didn't stop it. James is steadily on his feet, voice too loud for the small compartment. Him and Regulus stand toe-to-toe. James has an inch or two of height on him, but not as much as he would have thought. I couldn't, Regulus says after a moment, the words barely making it past his clenched teeth. I couldn't. There's a tiny part of James that knows that's probably true. But in this moment, he can't be bothered to care. Is that what you tell yourself? He asks, eyes running the younger boy up and down with disgust. Did you even fucking try? His cheeks flush, but the anger in his eyes comes back full force. If you would just stop antagonizing them. Antagonizing? Oh, you have to be fucking kidding me. James shouts, outraged, reaching for his wand. James. His name comes out short and strong. A command. He looks down to see Remus staring pointedly at him, one of his hands gripping Sirius's arm. Sirius looks like he'd rather be just about anywhere else. James wants to protect him. He wants to keep him safe. He just wishes he knew how. Enough now, yeah? Remus goes on, eventually. James wants to fight back. He does, but the sick look on Sirius's face keeps him still. Fine, he mutters, dropping his hand and glaring as he falls back into his seat beside a very confused Peter. Regulus looks infuriatingly smug for a bloke who just nearly got his balls hexed off. He opens his mouth to speak, but Sirius cuts him off. Go, Reg. He sounds tired, and it makes James's chest ache. Just go, yeah? His brother hesitates, eyes running Sirius over before he cautiously nods his head. He does not bother looking at James again before he slides the compartment door open and slips back into the corridor, like the snake he is. They're quiet for a moment, the noise of the train and some rowdy students outside the only thing filling the space around them. Eventually, James sighs, bringing himself to look across at Sirius. I'm sorry. There's a beat of stillness before a smirk makes its way onto Sirius's face. Should be. Very anticlimactic, that. He nods his head towards the door. Really thought I was going to get to see Reg punched in the face. James smiles back. I wanted to, believe me. Mooney's disappointment was the only thing holding me back. Remus rolls his eyes, returning his attention to his book. Don't know why. You've disappointed him plenty of times before. I'm trying to be a better man. Sirius snorts, leaning back, one leg bent up on the seat, the other stretched out, taking up an unreasonable amount of foot space. I see. He takes on a rather haughty air. Wouldn't be trying to impress a certain prefect, would you? James lets out a melodramatic sigh, hands clutching at his chest and as he makes hard eyes at Remus. I'm just waiting for the day he wakes up and realizes I've been here all along. Remus snorts, eyes rising off of his book. Oh, I know where you've been, James Potter, and I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Sirius barks when he laughs, which is fitting, really, the noise filling up the small space as the three of them dissolve into hysterics. Remus rolls his eyes. You lot are too easy, I swear. Moons, we can't help it. You're fucking hilarious. Sirius claps him on the back. And don't let anyone tell you any different, James adds, wiping the tears of mirth from under his eyes. However, Sirius continues, I was thinking of a slightly more ginger prefect. He shoots James a look, wiggling his eyebrows in a gesture that is equal parts suggestive and ridiculous. Really? No one's coming to mind, James says, suddenly intensely interested in his wand. Is that so? He shrugs, even though he can feel the blush heating up his face. Sorry, mate. No idea who you're referring to. Sirius is barely holding it together, but it's Remus who speaks next. Is this your new strategy, then? Pretending she doesn't exist? I'm not sure if it's a sign of you progressing or regressing. Sirius snorts. Regressing. Must be. It's not a strategy. James adjusts his robes. I'm just done chasing after her, that's all. All three of the other marauders give him looks of nearly identical disbelief. You're having a laugh, Sirius pokes. James shakes his head, cheeks still on fire. I'm not. It's bloody exhausting getting shot down all the time. Even I don't have an unlimited supply of pride. It's possible he isn't being entirely truthful. He did do some soul-searching over the summer, coming to the conclusion that the badgering and big showy gestures in his attempt to court Lily Evans were getting a bit, well, tired. Predictable was not something James Potter ever intended to be, and it did actually hurt every once in a while, when she would turn him down with a particularly sharp and usually fairly accurate attack of his character. But was there a tiny part of him that hoped this new leaf he was turning over would succeed in endearing him to her? Yes, definitely. Of course he wasn't about to tell anyone else that. Wow, Sirius exhales. End of an era, innit? James just shrugs again, forcing a casualness he does not feel. Other fish in the sea and all that. Remus blinks, looking down at his book, blinks again. My little boy's all grown up, he says with a quivering lip. Oh, shut it! James reaches across and playfully punches his arm, Remus batting him away with his book and the lot of them laughing again. Wait. Not that I'm not fascinated by James's love life, or lack thereof. Hey! James pipes up, but Peter ignores him, turning to Sirius and causing a rock to plummet in James's stomach. But is someone going to explain to me what just happened with Regulus? He was acting like he hadn't seen you in weeks. Sirius's lazy posture grows forced. Probably because he hasn't spent the summer at the Potters. There's a beat of silence. Your mum okay with that? Sirius shrugs. Don't think she cares one way or another, to be honest with you. Not anymore. Peter screws his face up while Remus sits deathly still, eyes running Sirius over like he's worried any sudden movement will spook him. It's not an unfair assumption. Sirius always gets touchy when he talks about his family. Won't you get in trouble? Peter finally asks in a tone that suggests he's feeling as though he's missed the punchline of the joke. Don't know how, seeing as I'm not going back. He smiles, but it doesn't look quite right, and James feels his chest squeeze at the sight of it. Not going back, Remus repeats slowly, gaze jumping from Sirius's face to James's. James nods. He's taken up permanent residence at mine. Fucking drifter. Oh, like that. Makes me sound dead mysterious. Sirius grins. Now, which one of you suckers wants to lose at exploding snaps? And that was that. It feels good, being back in the dormitory. It always feels good. The four of them together, like they belong. Admittedly, it feels less good to be back in class. It isn't that James has an issue with school on a practical level. He is, all things considered, rather brilliant, which has the unintended effect of making school a bit of a chore. The first few years, he'd gotten a kick out of being top of the class, but the shyness worn off. Nowadays, he lets Remus and Lily fight over the top spot. He has more important matters to attend to, pranks to pull off, chaos to spread, etc., etc. Sirius is the same, or he had been. Things are a little different this year. If he's forced to admit it, which he sometimes is by a particularly concerned werewolf, he would say that Sirius is being more reckless this year than he has in the past. There's a chaotic energy that seems to hover beneath his skin and threaten to explode at any moment. Pity the suckers who are around when it does. It's the second week, Remus hisses at him across the library table as James tries half-heartedly to get through his potions homework. Surprisingly, I do own a calendar. He doesn't need to look up to know that Remus is glaring at him. He's been in detention practically since we got here. James shrugs. That's not all that strange for him. There's another pause, no doubt to accommodate more glaring. James. It's the shift in his tone that finally makes James look up. Remus sounds scared. He meets Remus's giant, beseeching brown eyes and lets out a sigh, dropping his quill and running a hand through the mop of his hair. Yeah, all right, it's been a bit full on. It's not that Sirius has done anything particularly outlandish, transfiguring Miss Norris into a duck, sticking the Slytherin's cutlery to the table with a permanent sticking charm, setting a bunch of bludgers on those in the halls. That one had been a tad extreme. While he's sure Remus is concerned about, for all the right reasons, he usually is, personally, the thing James is most peeved about is the fact that he hasn't been consulted on a single one of these stunts. They were spur of the moment, Sirius said when James had broached the topic. Just right place, right time, you know? If I'd thought about it for even a second, I'd have told you. Shockingly, this had not remotely satisfied James's ego. I'm worried about him, Remus whispers, bringing James back to the present. I know. Remus's cheeks go pink as he looks down, fiddling with his quill. I feel like I'm flying a little blind here, he says finally. I know that something happened this summer, but he doesn't just walk out of that house. And I know it's not really my business. Says who? Remus looks up at that, sending James a grateful smile. Listen, Mooney. He puts his arms down on the table, leaning closer to his friends. We're a team, yeah? I swear to Merlin if you're about to make a Quidditch reference. James laughs. No, I wouldn't do that to you. You absolutely would. James pushes playfully at Remus's shoulder. I'm just saying, trying to say, it's all four of us. We're in this together. Remus arches his brow. In what together? James gestures to the space around them. This, life, all of it. We're in it together. You care about him. You want to help. I get it. I think he should tell you the whole story. I really do. But I can't tell you, because it's not mine to tell. Remus's eyes go wide. No, I wasn't trying to, but James waves a lazy hand, knocking his worries away. I know, Moons, I know. I'm just telling you so you understand that there's not some secret club between the two of us. There's an uncomfortable pause that James was not entirely prepared for. Remus shrugs. There is a bit. He knows they're not supposed to, but the words sting. And James finds himself sitting back, running a frustrated hand through his hair. It's fine, James, Remus goes on, clearly trying to cover up how very not fine it is. You're allowed to have a best friend. James scowls. I have 3 best friends. Remus arches a skeptical brow, but James refuses to back down. After a few minutes of staring one another down, Remus breaks, shaking his head and with a laugh. Jesus, James, all right. James smiles. I love being right. I don't think that's exactly what I said. Remus huffs, but the little smile still in the corner of his mouth is enough to satisfy James. Listen, Moons, he starts again, till more serious. Me and Sirius were similar, at least in the obvious ways, the way that everyone can spot. More than you and me, or me and Pete, but that doesn't mean I love you any less, yeah? Remus blinks at him, a look on his face that James can't quite read. James? He says slowly. Are you Proposing? James snorts, earning him an aggressive shh from the Ravenclaw at the next table. Why? He arches his brow suggestively. Would you say yes? Absolutely not. Ah, he clutches his chest. Remus, you wound me. Remus rolls his eyes, picking up his quill again. I'm sure you'll live. He hovers its point over his parchment, but doesn't press it down. And then, thanks for saying all that. His voice is a little tight. It's appreciated. James nods. Of course. And Sirius? James sighs. Sirius. He scrubs his face with his hands before dropping them back on the table. I think we need to have, keep an eye on him. Be there when he needs us. Reckon we can handle that? Yeah, me too. There's a beat of silence before they both turn reluctantly back to their homework. Well, James is reluctant. Remus seems perfectly happy. But then, the bastard has already finished his potions and is very rudely refusing to let James copy. Hey, James, Sirius says after a few moments have passed. His eyes flick up briefly, but Remus's are still on the parchment in front of him. I love you too, just so you know. The words are quiet and fast and all squished together, and it's so very charming and so very moony that James's grin is almost too big for his face. I'm thinking July. Remus looks up. July? For the wedding. James cackles, ducking under the table as a quill is launched at his head. The first time he sees Regulus after the train, James is sneaking down to the kitchens under the invisibility cloak, sometime around midnight. It's the third week of school, and Sirius's stunt polling has not in any way diminished. James is worried it's starting to prematurely age Remus. The problem with Sirius is you have to let him spin out a bit, not too far, of course, but it's like his feelings are too big to speak or think, so he has to act. James rounds a corner and nearly runs headlong into the person on the other side. Luckily, he catches himself in time, flattening out against the wall as a very purposeful-looking Slytherin pushes past him. It takes a few moments for his brain to catch up, fitting the curly black hair and haughty expression into place. By the time he realizes who it is, Regulus is already halfway up a flight of stairs, headed very much away from the Slytherin common room. For a moment, James is frozen, unable to decide which is stronger, his hunger or his curiosity. He's barely made a decision before he's taking the stairs, two at a time, trying to close the gap between him and Regulus before he loses him. The younger boy moves nothing like Sirius. He's all rigid, straight lines, and perfect posture. It makes James want to trip him, the pretentious prick. If he hadn't been so preoccupied with the position of Regulus's shoulders, and his arms, and hips, he probably would have realized where they were headed a lot sooner. But it's not until Regulus is throwing open the door, with James close behind, that he realizes they've climbed all the way up to the astronomy tower. James leans against the outer wall, watching as Regulus walks towards the edge of the tower. In the summer, when it doesn't get quite so cold after the sun sets, this is where people come to snog, and maybe a bit more if they're feeling adventurous. But somehow, James can't quite picture Regulus being the type for a quick hookup. He really is nothing like Sirius. The other boy is leaning over the edge of the railing, eyes on the sky, which is admittedly rather stunning at this time of night. All velvet black and sparkling stars. The moon is beginning to fill out, something James has learned to watch with wariness. He keeps expecting someone to come through the door. Surely this is some kind of rendezvous, even if not of the sexy variety. But no one comes. The only thing that happens is Regulus pulls a telescope from his pocket, unshrinking it with the wave of his wand and then peering at the sky. For a horrifying minute, James wonders if he's just gone and got himself stuck up here watching Regulus do his astrology homework. James pushes off the wall and steps closer, watching as Regulus spins a dozen different dials, adjusting the lenses. Whatever he's doing, it's practiced. Nothing about his fingers is unsure. He's always thought of Regulus as being so much younger than them, even though there's only a year between them. But he's grown over the summer. James noticed his height on the train, but now he can see that his shoulders and chest have started to fill out, his hair longer, like Sirius's, except neater. Eventually, Regulus's hands stop moving. He stares through the telescope for a solid few minutes before sighing and straightening up, eyes still in the sky. She's gotten worse, The words heavy. Since you left. James jumps at the sound of his voice, surprised, and momentarily afraid that he's somehow let the invisibility cloak slip off. But no. Regulus isn't looking at him, his eyes still staring straight ahead. Did you even think, for 1 second, about what would happen to me? He laughs coldly, looking down for the first time and scuffing his shoe on the ground. I don't know how to handle them anymore. I used to, but lately I can't breathe. His voice has gotten thick, and James thinks there's a chance he might actually be crying, but when Regulus looks up again, his face is dry. He scrubs at it with his hands before letting out an exhausted sigh. His eyes get caught in the moonlight, and the sight makes James's breath catch in his chest. There's something overwhelming about them. He doesn't think he's ever seen Regulus look this full before. Normally, he's a stiff cutout of a person, parroting his parents, practically two-dimensional. But not here, not tonight. Tonight he feels so big. With another piercing look through the telescope, he waves his wand and the thing shrinks to the size of a keychain. James watches him slip it into his pocket, watches him go back into the castle, the distant noise of his footsteps audible even after the door closes. He feels off-kilter. The entire time he's known Regulus, he's been a spoiled, spineless git who's treated Sirius like he was a disappointment, an embarrassment. But whatever just happened, and he's still not entirely clear on what just happened, it didn't fit. He's still stewing over it 15 minutes later when he walks through the portrait and into the Gryffindor common room, invisibility cloak in hand. Oi! He looks up and sees Sirius, Peter, and Remus all waiting by the fire, everyone else clearly gone to bed. Sirius raises his brows and gestures emphatically at James's visibly empty hands. What the hell, Prongs? Where are the snacks? Snacks? But as soon as the words are out of his mouth, it dawns on him why he left in the first place. Sorry, Filch was about, so... He shrugs before moving towards the staircase. Filch? Sirius squawks indignantly behind him. Since when has Filch ever stopped us from doing anything? You had the cloak, for fuck's sake. James doesn't bother replying, suddenly feeling incredibly tired as he jogs up to their dorm room. He doesn't put on pajamas, just strips down to his pants and crawls under the covers, closing the bed curtains around him. He wants to sleep off whatever the hell this weird feeling is that's sitting in the pit of his stomach. But despite his best efforts, his mind keeps lingering on the memory of Regulus's face, those stupid fucking eyes. The last thing he hears before falling asleep is Regulus's voice in his head, whispering over and over again, I can't breathe. Chapter endnotes. I have been obsessed with this pairing since Regulus week, but I haven't found any longer fics with them. If you have them, please send me those recs. So, I thought I'd give it a shot. Comments are always appreciated.